versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Movie versus Movie. And Patrick, we got a pretty full call today. I mean, you want to introduce some of the folks that are in the room with us?
Let's get into it. This is Patrick, your co-host, and sitting next to me is my lovely partner, Aaron.
Hi.
And sitting next to me is my lovely partner and friend of the pod, Alice.
Hello.
Alice, welcome back.
Thank you. Happy to be back. I'm not a friend of the pod.
Not yet. We'll see how this goes, then we'll let you know.
This will be Aaron's first time on the pod and first time also listening.
It's an immersive experience.
I'm a bad person.
Yeah. So yeah, we should probably talk about we did not have a Culture Boys last month, and so people haven't had a lot of time to digest what this pairing is. But Patrick, you and Aaron sort of were talking about favorite movies, and I was talking to Alice about favorite movies, and we kind of settled upon this sort of like romantic comedy / maybe just romantic setting because it's February. So Aaron, what made you pick My Big Fat Greek Wedding?
It's my one is my favorite rom-com, and two, it's like just such a lovely experience. I feel like I just love it. It's like you leave it, you feel great. It's like during part of it, every character is so strange and weird and like just fully accepted. And I just love it. It's also like a quick hour and a half ish. You know what I mean? Which is just like what I love. So it was weird rewatching it because I hadn't seen it probably in like 10 years at this point, but I remember really liking it. And then and it's also like one of those movies that I think are like cross appealing. Like I remember my dad, my mom, my stepmom, everyone being like, "Oh, I love that movie."
I mean, everyone saw it. I think it stayed in theaters for like a year and made just absurd amount of money because people just kept going. I mean, naturally, people must have gone back to the theater and seen it again, which I feel like you've also could you guess how many times you've seen this movie?
I probably at least like 15 to 20.
Whoa! Wow, that's
it is
solid.
the Shrek of rom-coms, though. I feel like there's something for everyone.
I'm curious what that means.
No one can hate it.
Yeah, like every generation, there's something in there.
Who will Zac Efron slowly turn to look like in My Big Fat Greek Wedding? We don't know.
Is that right? Wait, is that because human Shrek looks like human Zac Efron? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
because he's just taking so many roids. His face has expanded. It's very, very interesting.
I think it's the steroids, but
yeah,
we digress.
Alice, you picked Once, which is a movie that we've both seen before, but why did you pick Once?
So Aaron kind of picked the only rom-com that I feel like holds up. So it was a little bit tricky for me because I was, of course, racking my brain for what is a good rom-com in this year of our Lord 2025, where the man is unproblematic, where where you can watch it and you're like not cringing the whole time. And I'm thinking of, Meg Ryan movies, When Harry Met Sally, Sleepless in Seattle, all the classic ones that everyone talks about kind of suck. And often the man is not very, very good in the movie. If you've seen You've Got Mail, Tom Hanks is lying to her the whole time. Yikes. So I was like, well, why don't we just do a romantic movie? That's not necessarily a comedy. And neither of us had rewatched Once in a very, very long time. I gave Nick the DVD of it like 6 or 7 years ago, and we never watched it.
Yeah.
And so we watched it last night.
Yeah, and I'm proud to say that I was able to make the movie problematic for Alice and maybe ruin that for her. But we'll talk about that during that. During the movie setting.
I think I might know what you're talking about. But it was kind of a bait and switch a little bit with the theme, which I think we'll talk about. But like, I would classify it as a romantic movie, but it doesn't. It doesn't follow the romantic thread you think it will, and then you get to the end and you're like, huh, But
Oh, it's over.
Yeah.
So why don't we jump into my big fat Greek wedding? So, Patrick, where do we start on this Greek summer's day?
It's first of all, it's winter.
Oh, right.
It opens
It's kind of it's kind of rainy Chicago opening, right? And jump in. I'm going off of my recollection in Wikipedia, but Aaron, I think you have a nearly photographic memory of this movie, so jump in as needed. But yeah, we open with 30-year-old Tula Portokalos, which it's an interesting movie to watch at 30.
Yeah.
You're like, I am this age now. But yeah, Tula is, she's 30. She's
the personification of frumpy.
Yes.
Yeah. She calls herself Frump Girl.
Yeah.
She calls herself
self-hating talk. We don't love that.
She's in a large Greek family, and she works at the family restaurant.
Dancing Zorbas.
Her father, Gus, all he wants her to do is to marry a Greek boy and to start having kids as soon as possible. But you can tell Tula longs for other things, but perhaps she can't quite articulate it yet.
She still works at her family's place. She's around her family all the time. It feels like she's so. One of the things I will say about this movie is that I found it a little bit unrelatable in that I would go absolutely insane immediately being that close to my family every single day.
Yeah. But I feel like her brother still lives at home too. So it's like they just live in the house until you get married and then you move out. And it seems like that's the cultural thing. Even their grandma lives with them.
Yeah.
It's like,
love the grandma.
Grandma's great
so
character. Her trying to escape and being stopped by the sprinklers is maybe my favorite part of the movie.
It's so good.
But yeah, one day in the restaurant, she waits on Ian Miller, who's a high school teacher, and his kind of George Costanza-y friend. It's kind of given that vibe. It's true. They don't put bald 30-year-olds in movies and shows anymore. Can you imagine a show or a movie today having somebody who's 30 who's full bald on top?
I feel like there was in a lot of the 80s and the 90s, there was that archetype of the friend who usually ended up being sort of like a small-time villain who's the friend of the male romantic lead and is there for advice and always gives the terrible advice of you should just kiss her or whatever because that's what women want. And then I feel like this is the last version of that before it completely fell out of rom-coms in the 2000s.
It's so funny.
The schlubbiness friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who thinks they're that he's way more with it than he is.
Yeah. You're oh, this is why you're alone.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But she's immediately infatuated with him at the restaurant.
There's a really awkward interaction where she's his friend asks for coffee and she fills up her love interest coffee cup and then just runs away and then hides behind the counter.
Yeah. And there's some really great shots of them the love interest and his friend talking and then him like looking up, and then the camera just like catches Tula with this look on her face of like complete it's like this blank eye. It's sort of like this weird stare, and it's really funny every single time they do it.
I do think we should note that it is John Corbett, Aiden from Sex and the City, is the love interest. That's that's very important. That is Aiden.
As someone who has never taken a walk in the city, what is his deal on Sex and the City?
So he is one of, I would say, two very, very big love interests for Carrie, Sarah Jessica Parker. There's Mr. Big and there's Aiden, and it's kind of like the battle between these two. But the audience has kind of always agreed that Aiden is better, but she ends up with Mr. Big. At the end of the show. So
he's a good guy, and I think, as you've alluded to, in this movie, he's like puppy dog pure, right? Is there like any real defining personality traits with him
Not
other than
really.
just like he's nice in Midwestern and he's a teacher.
And like willing to go the distance for her, which I feel like is so rare that the woman is the more complex character and the guy's just like kind of arm candy who's like willing to do like whatever to be with her with like arguably very like he's just not he is a fully complete picture, but it's just kind of missing some stuff.
In a weird way, there is sort of this reversal that My Big Fat Greek Wedding does, where in the 80s, 90s rom-coms, usually the woman is very flattened when it comes to like who she is and what she needs from a partner and what she's looking for, just to be this sort of like love interest that has to be pursued. But in this case, it kind of reverses all of that in that he's just sort of like, I'm in. It's like no pursuit necessary.
I did write down that he is a little milquetoast, but I don't mind it because there's so few good guys in rom-coms. Like he's just good, and that's nice.
And I feel like his main purpose is to be a foil to the Greekness of their family, for them to just bounce off crazy stuff about the family, because he's a vegetarian. He's just he comes from a very
I'll make lamb. Another great line.
Him and his very white parents.
Oh, the Millers. I think growing up too, that's why I love this movie, because my dad's one of 10, and so like thinking about bringing anyone into our family, we're not Greek, we're just Irish Catholic, but it's like the idea of having like 21 first cousins that you then have to introduce people to and like keep everyone straight, and like half of them have J names, and it's just like, how do you do it? So I love that part of it too, and they invite the whole family to like everything constantly.
But okay, so Tula gets it in her head that she wants to go to college and learn computers.
What a great early 2000s plot of like, why don't I just learn computers?
They're those big things too, like the 16-inch deep ones, and you're like, oh yeah, the monitor.
But what's the sequence of events? Because she brings it to her dad, right?
Yeah, she's like a pamphlet for a community college and brings it to her dad. And it's my favorite line of the movie, where she's like, I thought it'd be really good. We could like update the inventory. I could go to college. We could learn to use the computer. And he just says in this like crying voice, like, why do you want to leave me? And it's so good. And it's just like, he like misses the whole point of it, which is like kind of, I feel like his character is just like, why is this just good enough for you? Like, as you are, like, you're getting old. You should just get married. And he says that to her all the time, like, you look so old. Like, you got to get married before you essentially get older and like, I guess more old looking.
Yeah, he's such I feel like he's like one of the more complex characters in that he serves as both like a primary protagonist and antagonist.
Yeah.
Where he's like someone that you're trying to like, she's trying to work around and make sure that he feels taken care of and safe and everything. But he's also a huge idiot that makes things way harder than they have to be.
Super sexist.
Oh yeah.
And like, it is fun to watch the rest of the family just basically manipulate this old man to do whatever they want. Which is really funny.
It was giving me flashes of Moonstruck, the like family dynamic of the traditional patriarch. Kind of a similar, like a bit of a similar arc in Moonstruck.
Yeah.
And the scene where they convince the dad that it's his idea that she get the job at the travel agency, which I feel like is coming soon in the plot. I've seen it in other things, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's like it's also just like so puppet like the way they do it. It's like so robotic, but I'll wait till we get there to reenact it.
It's coming up. I think the only major thing that happens before that is the mother convinces the father to let her start taking classes, and she starts taking classes, and we get her makeover / school montage where she suddenly, I think just by being exposed to other women, discovers how to style her hair and like
inexplicably, like she gets contacts and like changes her clothes, all things you can do quickly, arguably. But then she like learns how to style her like hair, which used to be like very puffy, like early Hermione Granger, into like beautiful ringlets. And you're like, okay.
That does take about 34 years, I would say. And I'm still working on it. I do like that it's like she's giving herself the makeover.
Yeah.
Which you don't see too often. And it also felt like time was passing. So at least like it didn't all happen in one day. It did seem like over months which I don't know how she did any of that without YouTube videos, but like she figured out makeup, she figured out, a little more cute clothes, and then she figured out her curl care, which is important.
Big steps.
Yeah, and there isn't a moment where it's like the man like being like, wait a second, and like reaching over and like taking her glasses off and be like, nah, you're beautiful. It's like all self-directed. And also I think it kind of feels like the most important part of the transformation is her socializing with other women her age and like learning to be less nervous and things like that. Like the physical transformation is like there, but it feels like the real achievement that she is able to get out of that is that she is becoming more sort of like self-possessed and confident going into the world, which is like what actually makes the difference.
Yeah. And there's this like beautiful parallel scene that I feel like they do where they show her as like a young girl having her like weird Greek food and no one wants to sit with her, and all the blonde girls are like sitting over at their own table. And then in college, they'll have like white Wonder Bread sandwiches. And then in college, like she goes and asked to sit at the empty seat and has also like a white Wonder Bread sandwich. And it's just like a really cute little like tiny, I don't know, like a nice parallel.
And the makeover, it's not like she gets like super drop dead, gorgeous, sexy, stunning. Like it's not her. It's still her. It's still her. It's just like her, but like slightly improved, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. She self-actualizes. Yeah. Shortly after she gets the makeover, then, figures out there's a class in tourism and computers. And so her aunt Vula runs
Who
the tour.
is another one of my favorite characters. I really like the extended family women, like the aunts and the grandma and all that kind of stuff.
Andrea Martin, doing a
fantastic,
wonderful job.
Yes,
but she's the best.
But yeah, that's when we get the scene of them. They decide to convince Gus to let her stop working at the restaurant. She's gradually creating distance from her family and work at the tourist agency as she's taking this class.
There's like a beautiful 2 minutes where the woman, like Tula asks her aunt, and she like gives like a little interview, and her aunt's like, of course. And then they like talk about how they're going to manipulate like Gus, the dad, into doing it. Yeah. And her aunt's like, tell me what to say, but don't tell me what to say. And they're like, yes. And then they like go do it. And then they have the beautiful scene where the aunt is like, woe is me, business is bad. It's like super robotic exchange that you're like, this has to be so easy to spot, but he's like super into it, and they're like, you're so smart. I love it.
And he's basically like, oh, why doesn't your boy come work at the restaurant, and Tula can do this other thing. And he feels super smart, and they're like, yes, we did it. And I think that this was the scene before the one where the mom is like, the man is the head of the family, but like Greek women are the neck, and we can turn it
we can turn the head any way we want. That's like,
I love that line. That's so good.
Yeah, it's so good. It's when she's trying to go to college, and she's like, Dad's made up his mind. He's so stubborn. She's like, don't worry about it. I got this.
I do want to so there's a really small plot line with the brother who's like an artist trying to get the dad to like look at his art for the new menus. And then like eventually I think we're coming up on it sometime, but like he decides he's going to go to school because he's inspired by his sister. And at first I was sort of like, oh, is the brother going to be sort of like a hyper masculine, like get out of here, bro, to like the guy, which is there's a little bit of that, but he's actually just like a really nice brother. Yeah, like this movie consistently is like, oh, is it going to use this awful stereotype that we hate? Oh, no, actually, it's just they're all nice people.
Which I feel like once sort of does too.
Yeah.
Commonality.
Parallels. Yeah, no. Everyone's like him and Joey Fatone from In Sync, right?
Oh, we got to talk about that.
He's one of the cousins.
Kind of. Yeah, rib him a little bit later in the movie. But yeah, there's generally not too much other than just like bravura, like version of Greek masculinity. They're generally like, he's a supportive brother. He has his dreams too. She inspires him.
I was hoping he would be gay, but that didn't seem to.
No.
Yeah.
He really does. He codes as gay though. Like
there are 2 sequels, maybe.
Yeah.
We haven't.
I heard they're bad.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I heard they were bad, and I didn't want to
Mary?
ruin it the first one, so I just didn't watch them.
but we don't know if because he doesn't. He talks about how he just wants to marry a Greek girl, but we never see him.
Yeah.
You know.
Maybe that's the wedding in the second one.
Yeah. But yeah, so she starts working at the travel agency where she runs into Ian doing a very horny. This is like the most kind of personality he gets is when he's doing his little routine in the window.
Yeah,
I love when the old woman beats the shit out of him.
That part was very funny.
It's good.
so good.
That
So
was I don't okay. Well, there was some I don't remember watching this movie since it came out. Aaron claims that we've watched it in the last few years together. And I was like, I don't remember that. But I definitely I remember watching it as a kid and being like, that was fine, but like wasn't that funny.
Yeah.
And I can tell like the scenes that I remember, I'm like, oh, I thought that was really funny when I was however old, 8 or whatever, when this movie came out. Like that's the scene of the old lady beating him up, or the scene where they tell him to say, I have 3 testicles.
Yeah.
I was like, that was the stuff that was getting 8-year-old Patrick. And the more nuanced stuff, I was like, not interested.
Not
Too much kissing. I also remember thinking there's a lot of kissing for a PG movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is kind of where that all starts, because it kind of like they have this interaction, flirting, and then they decide to start dating, right? Because they sort of are hanging out in the tourism shop.
The travel agency. They don't exist anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, they meet and then sorry.
Oh, keep going, Aaron.
No, he asked her dinner and she goes. And then my favorite, she lies to her family and says she's taking a pottery class on like Friday nights. And because her mom's like, where are you going? And she's like, pottery class. And so then they have this like dinner, and then she like tells him about her family, and it's just all crazy. But I think they start dating and it's really, really cute. And then he'll drop her off like a house away and they'll just like make out in the car. And it's just like time passes as you just see them like making out more and more intensely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was also really interesting too, because he's like, you know, there's the joke of her always leaving and him being like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
But it doesn't like it. Again, it like definitely avoids like the 80s of like kind of like rape culture and stuff. Like none of that's in there. Feels just really okay. You never feel worried about her.
Yeah, he's not pressuring her.
Yeah.
It's just like nice sexual tension.
Yeah.
And then eventually they get found out, and someone's family member spots them.
It's her like sexy cousin Nikki who comes in. She's like, my aunt saw your aunt told my aunt that told my mom that she like saw you. She called it sucking the lips off Mr. Pottery Class. so good.
Incredible.
They found out, and then he like goes to the house and is trying to ask Gus for permission to date his daughter. And he's just like yelling, like, no, no.
Yeah,
He's also like, Gus is always very, just like childish. Like he kind of just throws a little fit when he's upset. The dad, like
he does kind of like just the way he looks too, with his like shaved head and everything. He kind of looks like a giant baby in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So he's never like extremely threatening, but he's just like, no, you know.
And he does like a little stamp with his feet at some point where he like stamps and just like shakes his head. And you're like, it's so good.
And then the mom goes and like has a talking to with him, right? And that's what changes his mind.
Well, for a while,
no,
he forbids them from seeing each other.
Yeah, and the mom's like, "You have a little romance, like it's over." And she's like, "No, I love him." And then she just kind of like forces it, essentially. And it's just like, we're gonna stick in this.
But Gus tries to set her up with a bunch of Greek men.
Oh yeah, all the weirdo Greeks that he knows.
I was like, "That's the
one guy say at the end, the last guy, the weird setup guy."
Is it the one who licks the spoon?
Yeah, he's just like licking a spoon. Like,
oh yeah, I was like, that was not so bad.
He had the widest tongue though. I was like,
could probably put some good use.
But yeah, so they continue seeing each other, and he eventually proposes I feel like in a pretty cute way. They're just like canoodling in bed, and he pops out a little ring. And She accepts, but he has to get baptized at the
Yeah.
Greek Orthodox Church.
I think originally she's like, my family, she feels the pressure, but she's like, my family's so miserable. I'm like, I'm so happy. And they're miserable because like we can't get married in the church. And so he ends up getting baptized, which is also one of my favorites because the sexy cousin Nikki is his godmother. Yeah. But she's like rubbing oil over his body in like a little baby pool.
Yeah. And then they just like dunk him a couple times.
I love how casual it is. He's just like, yeah, okay, I'll get baptized. All right, don't have to do anything. Just do this. Okay, cool.
This is also because we start seeing his family too in these parts, and it is wild to me that person came from that portrayal of those two people, because he's like, yeah, no, it's just like not super important to us, so we're gonna do this way, and they're like like waspy, sort of like super rigid people, and then he's just like, yeah, no, it's totally fine. It's like complete opposites.
They offer to like call the club, and they're like, no, like we're gonna get married in the Greek church, and then their wedding reception's at a place called Aphrodite's Palace, and then she like puts on that giant binder that her cousin made. It's like shit everywhere. So good.
Yeah, but I feel like, it kind of just, the movie just like, by nature of the fact that it's called My Big Fat Greek Wedding and we have to get to a big fat Greek wedding, it just kind of just rolls through. Like there's no real, things that present themselves as obstacles are resolved pretty quickly.
Yeah, this movie is much more of a ride than anything else. Like, it's not like you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's like, they're going to get married and there's going to be a big Greek wedding.
It's a romp more than a ride.
It's a romp.
I feel like, we were like, how long does this go on for? But we realized like when they first started dating, her sister's pregnant. And then by the time that they're done, you see her sister like uber pregnant. And then you see her with a baby that's like 4 or 5 months old. So you're like, this is like over like a 1.5 year period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do a lot of that, like really smart, like time, like telling of the passing of time and stuff, but they never talk about it. It's not like, oh, me and Ian have been dating for 3 months. It's just like kind of cues that you take from the rest of the movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or like
Very
it's Easter
smart.
and then, goes from
Yeah.
there.
I also respect, not to constantly like compare it to what they do in modern movies today, but like he's Ian, what's the actor's name?
John Corbett.
John Corbett. Like John Corbett is hot, but they takes off his shirt and they baptize him, and you're like, he's a fit guy, but he also looks like a guy in his 30s. Yeah, he's not like cut to the. I don't know.
He's not a Dorito on testosterone.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like The Witcher, 8 days in the water.
Yeah, he's no Hot Frosty.
No. You can tell.
Why didn't you pick? You should have picked Hot Frosty. It's your movie.
What did you say, Patrick?
I said you should have picked Hot Frosty. The best rom-com of I didn't see.
I've never seen
the new age.
We're so good.
It's really just as good as My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
We'll do that next month. Hot Frosty versus
Hot Frosty, cold temperatures
versus Jack Frost.
Jack Frost. Yes,
Snowman.
That movie scared me as a kid.
It is. I mean, honestly, we can get into it maybe in another episode, but like that snowman, like practical effect thing, terrifying. The weird puppet they made for Michael Keaton.
And it was apparently based off George Clooney because he was originally supposed to star in it. I would argue it looks like neither of them.
Did George Clooney turn into a snowman at one point in his life?
Wait,
it was based on the true story of George Clooney. I meant the model, the puppet that they made of the snowman, or the model or whatever.
No, the movie is based off of when George Clooney famously turned into a snowman.
Before he got on ER, he was a snowman.
He's a multifaceted guy.
Yeah, General Hospital was actually how he turned back. It was a very expensive surgery.
Do you mean ER?
Wasn't he in General Hospital?
No,
he was in ER.
He was on ER.
ER.
No idea.
All right.
Anyways, we digress. I was going to give a fun fact, but I'll save it for
your pocket
another time we talk about George Clooney. But yeah, then we dive into the wedding planning, which is, I feel like, what everyone came to see.
Yeah.
Came to My Big Fat Greek Wedding to see them plan and execute a big fat Greek wedding.
Just like them getting steamrolled by their family for like invitations that they didn't want, or like the cousin. Like I feel like in one scene they do like all the things where they're like, oh, we already ordered the invitations, and like his parents' names are spelled wrong. It's like Rodney and Harriet, and it's Rodney and Harry, which is
very
great.
funny.
So good. And then like the
they were
cousin,
like, well, they just won't notice.
Yeah, we didn't notice. And the brother's like, I didn't notice. I don't think they will. It's like, what?
I do love later on when those parents are at the wedding and they're like, "Come on, Harry!"
And they're doing I think this is after they meet the family though. After they get engaged, she like invites his parents over for like a quiet dinner, what she's called a quiet dinner, and then
and there's like 50 people there.
Yeah, because she's like, you invited the whole family, and it's like every cousin, every aunt. Yeah. And I have to talk about this because this is the greatest moment of this movie. When they come in, they sit down, they drink some liquor, and then the aunt, unprovoked, is just like, okay. And then tells a story about how she had this like lump biopsy on her neck. And my favorite line is, yes. She doesn't even like wait for them to respond. She goes, yes, inside the lump, it was my twin. And you're just like, what?
And then she just like walks away. There's not a reciprocate.
Yeah, and they like do more alcohol. And they're just like, what is happening? Yeah.
It's so funny. It's like all of these like almost like rituals that they're just not a part of.
Yeah. And like everyone's, I don't know about you guys, but I've had that experience where you just like meet someone or you're talking to like one of your aunts and they're like, this corn that I've been getting cut off has just been the worst. And you're like, oh my God, I don't want to know about this.
My mom, the first time, was it the first time she met you? Probably not. But we were walking around an island in Maine because we did a day trip. And it was like Alice was like hanging out, being a really good sport as we went around. And my mom was like, yeah, so this is where all of like the fairy houses are built. And we're like, oh, cool. And we spent some time building some fairy houses. And she's like, yep. And that's the horse cemetery where they bury all of the dead horses. And that is the like school for the deaf where all of the kids were molested. And I was like, Mom, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I don't know. It's like this boomer thing of wanting to share like the most dark thing that has ever happened.
Details. Yeah.
But I think what makes it so funny is the aunt says something dark, but just like strange.
Yeah.
Like the thing that she says is more strange.
It's
than
not,
dark.
yeah, it's not a tragedy. It's just, I had a twin and I consumed them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's gross either. It's just strange.
And the way she says it, she's just like, yes, it's what we all thought. Inside the lump, it was my twin. And you're like, we didn't think that at all. Like, what did she say? Teeth and spinal column.
Yeah. Horrifying. So funny.
Every time I get like a mole, I'm like, is it this?
Is this it? Is this when I get mine?
It happens to everyone.
It could.
One day it comes for us all. But yeah, they have at the party. I think Gus is he's a little upset because they don't quite fit in, right? The parents.
Yeah, I think they give him a lot of like alcohol, and then his parents are like kind of woozy, and they like keep trying to feed them like meat and stuff, and they're like, we don't want it because they're just like really drunk. And they bring a bundt cake, which they don't know what it is, and so they put a flower inside the bundt cake because they're like, it's a cake with a hole in it, which is so fair. Yes. And just so good. There's just like little cultural things that you're like,
they gave us a cake with a hole.
And then like they bring it out later to like show them like, you fixed it. Someone yells.
They put a potted plant in the middle.
Yeah, so good.
So funny.
But I feel like Gus is like Ian Miller and his burnt toast family is what he calls him. Like there's just no seasoning, no nothing. It's like he would rather than be like super annoying and crazy than just like what they are, which is so funny to me. But.
Yeah, and then we kind of get to the actual. Actually, this is the part where NSYNC member
Joey Fatone.
Makes his appearance, which Alice was like, stop the movie. Stop the movie. Is that Joey Fatone?
Oh, yeah.
Is
he Greek?
He's got it.
I don't know if half the people. Yeah.
He seems Italian to me, but I don't know. Maybe you would think.
With a name like Fatone, it kind of sounds like.
That's a good question.
It would be wild if he wasn't Greek and they were just like, no, we want that one member of NSYNC.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like,
any Greek actor.
What is 2002? Like NSYNC is still big, right?
They're really big. It's the height of NSYNC.
Maybe this was him trying to make the Justin Timberlake jump into acting and just didn't quite land.
Yeah, I wanted to see like what else he acted in.
But yeah, it's like him and the brother keep fucking with Ian and telling them like crazy phrases that they should say. So he's like, oh, how do I ask people to like go in the house? And he asks the brother and he tells him, and he's like, no, you fucked with me last time. I'm going to ask Nikki, like the other cousin or whatever his name is. And then he also tells him the same thing. And it's the three testicles. Like it's him yelling, I have three testicles in Greek. It's so good.
And everyone just kind of stops, is like, huh, okay.
And then he like that's another time of like Ian Miller has spirit. He like runs after them, but is like gonna like jokingly fight them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty good.
There was a
So good.
Sorry, there was what? Sorry,
Was he
there
in Kim Possible?
Apparently, I'm looking at his IMDb. He was in Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones as a Jedi Knight. Apparently, I'm assuming that's just a glorified cameo. There was also apparently a TV show called My Big Fat Greek Life. Aired 7 episodes. It doesn't look like Nia Vardala was in it, but it's definitely not John Corbett as the other guy. And then after that, it's a lot of kids shows, animated shows. So I don't think his career really took off, but he is in the sequel.
There you go.
And I don't know if he's in 3, but yeah, he is in 3. So
wow, so he's still committed to the project.
yeah.
He's a part of that family.
Yeah, forever.
For life.
But but then we get to the day of the wedding and all the chaos that comes with that. She wakes up in the morning and has a pimple on her lip, and everyone freaks out about that. What else happens on the day of the wedding?
The mom gives her like the bedroom talk where she says like, Greek women, we may be lambs on the street, but we are tigers in the bedroom. And she was just like, ew, please let that be the end of your speech. It's so good. And then I love the aunt is like pulling chin hairs off of her mom the day of, like a good sister would.
That was
and
great representation of
I know, it was like so real. She's like, one big one. And she like, rips it and she's like, okay, I'm done.
I also really like that Tula is sort of like, this wedding is for her family in a lot of ways. And she's not stressing about like, she's in kind of a crazy poofy dress. She has this like very sort of Greek makeup put on her. But she just is like in very good humor the whole time. And I think like a lot of scripts would have taken it into a negative place, but it really does maintain just like a general level of happiness. Which is nice.
Just like finding a way to accept her family's traditions and quirks, but also like find her own path and someone that she loves. Because the wedding itself is in the Orthodox Church and is kind of
it's in Greek.
It's in
like
Greek.
Ian doesn't know what's happening, so she like at one point she's like whispering to him like they're about to take their first steps, which is really good.
And
I didn't really understand why she chose that dress, though. That was kind of the only bit where, like, I get why the makeup kind of goes wrong and, like, her bridesmaids have the crazy dresses and, like, she's not really putting up a fight about anything. Yeah. I would think that she would have a little more say in her dress.
Yeah. I thought
definitely doesn't like all the bits and bobs on it, and she had to be there when they picked it out, but...
Yeah, because she's just like, what did she say? I look like a
snow beast.
A snow beast.
And she's like that like triple thick veil and like all this crazy stuff. Yeah, I like wonder if it's just somebody else's dress or they like the aunts picked it out.
It's got to be like a family dress or something,
right?
Oh,
I didn't think of that. That's
I bet it is.
Yeah,
because aunts all get her ready while all her cousins are like getting into their bridesmaids dresses. And
I do love that they all have like you see the cousin shows off the bridesmaids dress earlier and it's like super tight and super busty and like fits her very well, but then they show it's like later it's just all of the other bridesmaids are wearing the exact same dress, so just like super tight, super busty. It's really funny.
It's really great.
But yeah, and then they have the reception and
there's that great line where like she's like, I have this huge pimple, it's going down when they're back like after the wedding in the limo, and he's like, I had a pimple this morning too, and she's like, where'd it go? And her, like, Tula's dad always puts Windex on everything. And he's like, oh, I put Windex on it. I think just to fuck with her. Like, gets out of the taxi. But I was like, I hope he did. I hope he's, like, accepted Gus into his heart.
Yeah. I feel like it's a little gesture.
We also see the love connection with Ian's best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. All the cousins are going for
Curvy
him.
lady at the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, yeah.
And they get dancing, and like in general, everyone starts having a good time. This is when we see the Millers kind of drunk, having a good time. Everyone's sort of, been accepted. And then Gus gives a speech where he basically gives them a house.
Oh, yeah.
He gives his apple and orange speech.
Yeah. Apples and oranges. And very 2002, I guess, thing to give someone a house. I don't even know.
That's crazy. I mean, they're very wealthy in this movie. They have like a pretty large house with like statue garden.
Yeah. I feel like too, my favorite part of that, it's like the aunt is sitting next to the Millers, and she's like, this is what we do. The parents give a gift because they haven't told them beforehand, or the Millers probably would have come with a gift, but they like didn't know, so like fuck. So it's just it's really funny. But yeah, he gives them a house and then starts crying.
And it's like the house directly next door to their house. So it's like no escape.
Yeah. It's like the ending scene is them like panning out from the houses, and it's just they're next door to each other.
The full family is still there.
Yeah. And then my favorite's like one of the ending lines in the movie is Tula is like sitting on her, not Tula, the aunt is sitting on her like husband's lap, and she's like, he looks Greek to me, as he's like dancing in the circle, and you're like, it's nice. Everyone's been accepted.
Yeah. And then I think, you just get like a voiceover of like, I know my family may be loud and crazy, but they're my family and I love them. And then like cut to 6 years later and they have a little girl. And they're sending her off to Greek school. And it pans out and you see the house. They're right next door. And it's just like, we did it.
We did it. We had a big fat Greek wedding. Did it hold up, Aaron? Did you like it as much as you have your last 14 viewings?
Yeah, I just love it. I love movies that like I can leave and like, oh, that like makes you feel good. And I feel like she has like external catalysts of her like transformation, but all of it's just like internally kind of driven, and I love that part of it. But I also, Patrick had to find me so annoying because like 5 seconds before they would say one of my favorite lines, I would say it to him in my own voice. I feel like it's just like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah,
but it was good.
It's revealing a revealing watch as well too, though, because a lot of this stuff is just the things Aaron will say to me. And I'm like, oh, that's what that's from.
Like, why you want to leave me? Or like, I can snap you like a chicken.
Yeah, and like one big one.
One big one.
But this movie was made for $5 million and it made $370 million.
Oh my god!
Man, she must have so much fucking money.
But it's kind of crazy because she hasn't done like. Other than the sequels and stuff, I think she was in other movies and stuff, but her career didn't take off quite in that way.
She's sad.
She's also a writer who has done other stuff, though. I think she wrote Every Brilliant Thing.
I thought she was
a playwright, because I saw on her IMDb that it had a play, and it was like, or like every like Tiny Beautiful Thing or something.
Did she write this movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. This is like her kind of like self insert, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like at the time it was good. Because also the time when like all the like Cinderella stories coming out, and, like all those ones of like the guy just kind of sucks, and you're like, why are you going up to him anyway? And this one was just like, it was just nice.
In a way, this feels very traditional. However, it is ahead of its time by like 20 years in a lot of ways. Like it's a very sort of I don't know. It's like feels like a very like blue collar, like family oriented family that is huge and loud, and the focus of the movie is more about just like all of the relationships in her life rather than one relationship being like this most important thing that's going to change everything. And it was more like, how do you just like put these weird people together? It's like mixing friend groups.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and it just generally makes for like a warm movie to watch that goes down easy. And like you said, for a movie from 2002, there's really there's nothing that really like makes you like, ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, nice. there was some fat phobic, not so great stuff where they kind of talk about her weight. But I think that if that's the only small thing, we're doing pretty well for 2002.
Yeah. We were really we were able to just sort of, or at least I was able to just sort of sit back and relax and watch it and have really no qualms. It was great. Shall we switch to once?
Yeah.
And then we'll do a compare contrast.
Let's
all right. Alice, take it away.
I have to do it? You do it.
All right. We open in Dublin, Ireland, where a busker is playing on the road. Would you like to continue?
He sounds great.
We're going to do this one word at a time.
Sounds great. The movie was shot on a Nintendo DS.
I will say that this movie is shot, like I kept saying to Alice, like over and over again, like, man, this feels like like college. This feels like college. This feels like college.
Yeah.
She thinks that it's because I saw it for the first time in college. However,
And you love talking about college.
and I just love talking about college. But
Is Asher Roth over here?
But the thing is that like it feels like it was shot on a DSLR or some sort of like pretty like run and gun camera. It is like kind of, Alice said that it's like in almost a documentarian style where it's like not on tripods or anything. It is, you can see the camera shake with the movement, but also like the type of story it just reminded very much of like what types of movies my friends and I were trying to make in college. Like this is sort of like the scrappy bohemian sort of like love story coming of age thing, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it does it pretty well, but we'll get into that later. But so he's playing on the street, and he is busking, singing a great song. It's Glenn Hansard, the main character, and as they zoom out, there's this woman who is watching him and kind of claps and throws a 10 pence.
No, not a tenner. It's 10
Oh wait,
pounds.
and I'm
You
skipping.
forgot the part about the guy who steals his all the money.
There's the guy
opener,
who's like on I think that in the credits it says heroin guy, so I guess he's
Nice.
using heroin, but he is high, and they have this kind of funny exchange where he's like, don't steal it. I'm just busking, man. Don't steal my money.
Like, I wouldn't.
He's like, I would never. And he like walks away, and then kind of comes back, and he's like, don't fucking do it. And he grabs it and runs. And then there's this whole scene of them running through Dublin, and sort of trying to get the case back. And then eventually he does. And the guy's like, I'm sorry, man. I'm just sick. Like I need like a hit. And he's like, if you just ask, fine. Here's like $5 or whatever. And he kind of wanders away after helping him collect all of the change.
But it does read as like they know each other, or he's kind of just like, all right, I'll see you around. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
I do love when the addict is like, so how's your mom? And he's like, she's dead, man.
He's like, oh, fuck.
He's like, oh, fuck, how's your dad? He's like, we're not doing this.
It is a very funny opening scene, and it does it plays like it's in like Jackass or something, because it feels very documentary. I assume they're wearing like lav mics, rather than like it being like ADR where they re-record it over or something.
Yeah.
I think they shot a lot of scenes from afar too, so that like
Right.
people didn't even know they were making a movie.
Because they didn't have permits for most of the...
That's what I
kept wondering.
That's what I assume. I assume most of the busking, anything out in public, is just
And there's just like
shooting
people
it.
walking by. I wondered that.
Yeah.
And some of it's really pretty like chopped up editing wise, where I'm like, I wonder if they just would film a little bit, try not to do it for too long to draw too much attention to themselves.
Yeah, it definitely has that sort of run and gun feel. It does. There's like a lot of long shots too, which I think is probably for the same reason, Patrick, of, okay, like let's try to get everything we can right now. Let's not do a bunch of takes and setups. Let's just do one long take of, a song or something. And so a lot of these shots are, they feel very like not modern, because they're just like staying with one character or two characters for a very long time as they talk or they do a simple action. And there's not a huge amount of camera movement. It's like not very complex camera movements, but it just like allows you to feel a little bit more like you're in the life with them, which is, I think, maybe the goal, but also I think the practical, need of, okay, let's just like get our shot from this alleyway and no one will see us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
The whole thing kind of just felt like a bunch of people were trying to film like music videos and then just like shove them together with like collab between, which was like kind of cool.
Yeah, it is so interesting, because Alice, you commented on this, where in a lot of musicals, like the idea in opera and in musicals specifically, I guess, is that the intensity of emotion gets to the point where the characters have to move into song rather than stay with dialogue. And so that's why songs always are very presentational and big. But this is a very different kind of musical.
It's an unassuming musical.
Yeah, it feels...
It's nice.
Yeah, it's just like Aaron said, like, it just kind of feels like we drift into a music video and then we kind of drift out again.
Yeah. Do you, I guess you'd consider it a musical? Okay. Big
What would
nods
you
from both of
think?
you. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a definition of a musical, but it's not like every song exists in the world. And I guess it is like, you know, it's not, sorry, I hate to use this example. I have not seen the movie Amelia Perez, but I've just seen the clips. Have y'all seen the clips?
Yeah.
I will watch it, but I haven't watched it yet, and I'm nervous too.
There's just a clip that's gone viral of what is it? I want to learn about sex change operation.
Yeah. Penis, vagina. Penis, vagina. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like that's how, you know, just the version of a musical that like the music is used for storytelling, but in a way that's not like the music. Well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I have a terminology.
I know what you're saying. They're not trying to get like they're not moving the plot forward via the music in this. It's more about like you sitting and contemplating the emotional state of these characters a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think it helps that it was not a stage musical that was adapted into a movie, which is almost always bad.
Yeah.
There's very few examples of a good musical from the stage to the screen. This was a movie first, and then it was adapted and put on stage as a musical.
And we were talking about it. It's like, I think it's better and more in depth as a movie than it is as a stage musical, because as a stage musical, they add like 5 characters and they have to flesh those folks out. And so you basically never really get a real look into guy and girl sort of like emotional state and like what they want and everything. You just don't have as much time with them. So
I wonder, have you both seen the stage musical?
Yeah.
Yes.
I did wonder about that because I was thinking about like this to me doesn't read as translating super well to a stage musical, because I do feel like you're just missing some of that like additional characters, and like there's not much, the emotions are pretty underplayed in the acting. Yeah, it's all very, so I was like, I'm curious how this translates. I think it did well, right? It won a bunch of awards as a musical.
Yeah, it won the Tony. It was best musical. It played for a long time. It toured forever. We saw it at a local establishment in Boston, and I would say that like the thing about the musical is that it's good, but they're hampered by the realities of having to play the music on stage. Like everyone has to be on the stage to play because all the actors are the band. So everyone is playing while they're singing and doing all this stuff. So you still get this kind of intimate feeling, but it kind of feels like, wow, this is like amazing Irish music that is sort of tacked on to a loose story that we're sort of following through. Whereas in the movie, I was willing to sort of like be more invested, I guess, in the story. Like I felt like I got a little bit more out of the story than I did in the musical. Do you agree?
I mean, I think you get much more of the Dublin-ness.
Yeah, that's true.
It all in the movie, and it's just not something that you can replicate on a stage.
Yeah.
It's so, I forgot that like it is so, and now that we've been to Dublin also, I'm like, oh, it's so Irish.
Yeah.
These people, not girl, but guy, and his situation, and you know, you can just like feel him like never really having enough money and struggling, and I don't know, it's just more visceral in the movie.
Yeah. And like the space itself, the place also really comes through. We were constantly being like, oh, we went to that park. Oh, that's that place. Oh, that's that street that we walked up and down. And like that, it really comes through in a lot of scenes. Like we'll get to it, but like where they're having sort of the artist salon kind of thing, where they're like all in that flat, and there's like a big table with a bunch of empty beers and like candles that are dripping on the table, and they're all just like singing for each other.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that's fucking cool as shit.
It does feel like of that era though too, like in college and people like.
That's what I'm saying. It felt very college, right? Like it was like, wow. I remember when like a bunch of my friends and I would go to some place that had a big table, and we would all just sort of potluck like a random dinner together and hang out and just like chat. You know what I mean? It was like really good.
And I think it's interesting too, because we'll get to it at the end of the movie, but you're kind of are presented with this life, and obviously like he's struggling and has these dreams and has the woman that is in London, but you're like, oh, if you're kind of like following what you think the formula is going to be, you're like, but he's going to realize that he's in love with her and he actually has something really special here in Dublin. And then he doesn't, but you're like, maybe he does eventually. Like, we don't know if things work out in London, but it is kind of like, oh no, he doesn't, that doesn't happen. He goes to London.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of ourselves.
In a lot of ways, it's like the opposite of My Big Fat Greek Wedding, in that it basically, the whole movie takes place over the course of like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
But I'll get back to the summary so we can kind of skip through to those parts. But so girl sees him playing and throws 10 cents into the bag. They kind of have this sort of back and forth. He initially comes off as a dick because he's like, oh, 10 cents, thanks, man. But then it becomes very clear that she's just like really likes his music, and I think he kind of softens back up. And she finds out that he is a vacuum repairman, and she's like, oh, I have a broken vacuum. Can I come tomorrow and you can help me fix it? And he's like, yeah, sure, I guess. And so it kind of cuts to the next day, and we see her kind of just show up with a vacuum that she's dragging along like it's almost like a pet dog, which I thought was really funny.
And the fact that she brings it to him busking while he's busking, not to the store, is so funny.
Yeah. And he's like, I don't have my tools, and she's like, okay, well, you'll fix it though. And he's like, well, I can't because I don't have my tools. And she's like, I'll just follow you then.
Yeah. It read initially, I was like, I feel like initially she kind of reads as a little like manic pixie dream girlish, where it's like, oh, she's so, this girl walking. I think just like the shot of her like walking down the street, like dragging the vacuum, just kind of like gave me like flash. I was like, Garden State, Natalie Portman. Get out of my head, that breath, no. And then the movie goes on, and you're like, oh no, she has a life and
stuff.
She's a full person that has motivations and conflicts of her own that she's working through.
And she's like a flower seller, so she walks around Dublin selling these roses, and so like neither of them are like super stable situations.
She's an immigrant as well.
Yeah, she's
from the Czech Republic.
Mm-hmm.
She's living in Dublin with her mom, and as we soon find out, her young daughter.
Mm-hmm. But she sort of to thank him, said like is just like talking with him. They go to this music shop where the owner lets her play one of the pianos on the show floor just during the lunch hour, but she can't afford a piano to have in her house.
And did I hear this right? Does she say her dad was a cellist?
Her dad
was in an orchestra.
Yeah, in an orchestra back in the Czech Republic.
But did I mishear this? Does she say that he got arthritis and then committed suicide?
And then died by suicide.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like,
and it's said to like so off, just like, yep, and this happened. I was like, whoa! I just like got hit with that line. I was like, where did that come from? Yeah, because it's never really talked about again. It's like this very kind of bleak, sad thing that just kind of is dropped and then moved on from.
Yeah,
which I guess is very Irish,
Yeah, and like she plays piano because it's like easier on your hands. It's like that's why she got taught it instead of
And so she plays beautifully, and he's like, wow, did you write that? And she's like, no, Mendelssohn did. Which I thought was really great too.
I did find like he's a bit of a dick to her through their first interactions. Like he spends time with her, but like is kind of brushing her off until I feel like he hears her play the piano, and then I feel like you kind of watch him, because I'm like, he kind of seems like he's falling in love with her, like as a musician initially, like more than like her as the person, which is interesting. But I think it works for them like playing the song together, which
I totally agree. I think that there's like a lot of interesting stuff in there too, because so we'll get there in just a second, but essentially they play Falling Slowly, the big song that came out of this movie. They play it together. They go back to his father's shop to fix the vacuum. He reveals to her that he was in love with this woman who moved to London, which is who all of these songs that he's written are based on. And she's like, wow, you love her. And he's like, yeah, I guess. And then she's like, you should go to London and be with her. And he's like, yeah, I don't know. But they have this sort of moment on the bus where he kind of plays this history in song form with the broken-hearted Hoover Fixer Sucker Guy song, which I always love. And then they're at the shop, and he's introduced her to his dad, who seems to like her.
Who's a sweetheart.
He is such a sweetheart.
He is.
Such a good wink. That wink.
Yeah. He's like an Irish Santa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He is. He's like a man made out of stone, just like Irish square shaped head, but he's so sweet.
But every time he opens his mouth, you think it's going to be some stern sort of like, come here, boy. But he's always just like, I love you, son.
Yeah. We were discussing, do you think the Falling Slowly is recorded live of them in the music shop, or do you think?
Yes. And I think that that's another thing about this movie, that you can really tell that they were playing everything live, which is you never see in movie musicals. It's always pre-recorded, and it's so clearly pre-recorded. So I feel like, especially I really noticed it when they later on in the movie, when they're in the recording studio and they find that piano with the ghost light. I'm like, they're just playing and singing.
Yeah.
It's so pure.
Yeah, it makes it magical. Although I will say I feel like the times when they don't do it, when they actually do it live, they make a huge deal out of it, like Les Mis, and then people are like, Russell Crowe can't actually really sing. And like, but yeah,
and that's another thing, is you have two real musicians.
Yeah. And it's wild that they're able to, because this is not easy music either. Like with them singing, like his music specifically, Glenn Hansard's, just like jumps octaves like very like commonly, and he goes into a falsetto very frequently and is sort of belting it out in sort of like that busker sort of style. That will destroy your voice if you're not like incredibly good at it. So it's very fortunate that they got him to do that, I guess. But this is a big moment because they're sort of in his sad little room where he has his twin bed, and he is sort of saying, and he's like, so do you want to stay? And she's like, no. And takes offense and is sort of like, are you kidding me? And then leaves.
And I think that that's a strange thing to do. I think, because they haven't had any physical interaction. Like if they had kissed, I think, and then he had said like, do you want to spend the night? I think that's acceptable, but to not have anything and then him ask her to spend the night is weird.
Yeah, but it's also weird to like go to someone's house and into their room that you like met the day before. So you're like, is this just like, yeah, I was like, it's also like weird. It's just like a weird situation because she's like, he lives above the Hoover shop, so he's there to like fix it. But he's like, also, you want to come up to my room? And I was like, I would never go up to a random man that I met on the street. So I was like, it was like awkward. I was like, oh, too much. But I was also like, it's a strangely like intimate setting for people who don't know each other well. So it's just kind of a weird thing.
They definitely there's energy between them.
Yeah.
There is certainly, you feel it fizzling between them when they're playing music together, when they're talking. Like,
no one is that into your music unless they're kind of into you as well. You know what I mean? She's constantly like, yeah, just like play me more music. I'm so interested in your music. It's like, okay, this is flirting.
Yeah.
It's giving the like, in the Barbie movie when they're like, listen to me play this guitar. You know what I mean? When she's into it, and you're like, okay, like,
let me play the song at you.
Yeah. A lot of playing at you and putting headphones on you of like, listen to this song.
Yeah.
Here's my Walkman that you can borrow.
Yeah.
It's like,
but it is nice that like she is at his level. in terms of musicianship, in terms of songwriting.
Yeah.
I really love the song that we see, which I think we're about to talk about, that she sings along to the Walkman, that actual woman wrote the lyrics to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like
they're very matched.
Right, and it's not played like she's actually also writing like he's like, here's this song, you should write lyrics to it. I think you write really good lyrics. Like, write lyrics to my song instead of like, which is nice.
And like one thing that I also think is really interesting, because like this is also the first time that you get a little bit of like their internal states, because they're in this weird situation of like, being in his room and everything. But I think that the reason why she reacts so firmly that way too is because she has like a very complicated, and we don't even really know about any of that yet, but she has like a husband back in the Czech Republic. She has a daughter. She is like looking for community, but she, like we see later, really only has a very small community of other immigrants that she knows very well, but she doesn't have like a community in Dublin yet. And I think that all like complicates that situation. And then he's like, I'm just like really lonely. Like he doesn't have anybody. His person is in London, and he feels like super out of sorts. And I think that he is also sort of, using this moment as a way to try to fix other things that are happening in his life. There's a lot of subtext, I feel like, in that moment too, which is more interesting than cringy to me, but it was sort of like, wow, that's a strong move.
Yeah, I mean, he's down bad. You get the montage of him playing that song and just watching videos of him and his ex,
who's been gone for 10 years. Like 10, it's 10 years, right? Isn't it?
Does
10
he say
years?
10 years?
10 years?
I wrote down it's been 10 years, and
Really?
I wrote "wired for pining?" ? Couldn't be me, but like that's. I feel like it's like a long time ago.
I don't remember that detail.
I thought they talked about it on the bus. I could be wrong, but it's been like a while.
I'm curious because I feel like, I mean, I guess the video, if that's the case, because all the videos don't feel that old. I don't know.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It is like the equivalent of like scrolling through someone's Instagram now, though. It's like I just have to watch all these digital videos that we recorded, these home videos that we made. Yeah, but it is very like she's not returning his calls. It seems like
he's calling and just listening to her voicemail.
Yeah. Sad.
He is down bad.
Especially I don't remember the 10 years bit, but like that I guess makes a lot of sense for this character. He's like very stuck,
That's so sad.
And so the next day he goes and apologizes to girl,
which is nice.
And he's like, I'm sorry, that doesn't need to happen. I like you for your music, and I just like us talking, so why don't we do that instead? And so they have this sort of day where they end up going all over the place, and they go to her place where he learns that she has a daughter and lives with her mother. And that she also, he's sort of like, so where's the father? And she's like, not here. So you don't really know what has happened with him sort of at the moment. But you see like they live in a sort of a building where like all of the other people come and like sit on their couch and watch the TV because they have the only TV in the building. And like, it's there's some pretty fun scenes where like they're all talking like Czech to each other, and he's like, yeah, like I would love to be part of this conversation, and they're like, no, let's just keep talking in Czech.
Yeah, I think, doesn't she say like you can speak English to her mom? And she's like, no, I'm good.
She says, no, thank you. Like in English back, she goes, no, thank you.
The mom is incredible, so powerful when she says, no, thank you.
But yeah, he like connects with the daughter, a little bit. And I love just the three guys that come in and just like up the daughter and put them on her lap and watch TV.
And learn English from the TV show.
From the one show. Mm-hmm. And then they also, so then after this, he goes back to his place and they continue kind of talking, and girl convinces guy that he should go to London to win his partner back, he agrees. He's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go next Monday. And so they decide to make sort of like a demo of all of the songs that he's written to bring with him as an investment, I guess, and getting like representation in London. And so they go to the bank, which I love this scene so much.
That's fun.
It's so good. Where he's like they go to like this Goodwill, and he gets like this kind of used suit. And he's like, do I look okay? And she's like, hey, to the owner, does he look okay? And he's like, he looks gorgeous.
He like doesn't even look up. He's like on the computer. Yeah.
There's a lot of like non-toxic masculinity.
Yeah, for real.
This movie. Like with the piano shop owner, with Guy's dad, with that shop owner. Like there's just men being little sweeties.
Yeah, just kind of like working class Irish, just like people that they interact with in their everyday. It's nice. It feels very real, and like people that are full humans and characters just like existing in the background.
Yeah, totally. And then they go to the bank, and they're like, she girl is basically like, this guy makes the best fucking music ever. You should invest in this music. This music's amazing. And he's like really sort of like not, you can tell he's nervous, not used to this kind of thing. And then the best part is like the bank guy is like, actually, like I play a little music. And then it cuts to him with a guitar, and he's like, why don't you listen to this one?
He's like, I do have a dream.
Yeah, I too have a dream. And then it just like cuts to him like signing paperwork, and it's so good.
It is nice because at first I kind of read it as like cynically, like he's going to be like, yeah, we're all trying to make it, buddy, but like, none of us can. But instead he's like, you know what? I have a dream too. Approved. Yeah. Which I'm like, that's
nice.
Yeah, it's nice. And so they get the money to secure this recording studio, and so then they have to find other band members. So he just goes to other buskers that he's seen, and he's like, yeah, so like how's the street today? Oh yeah, cool, okay. You guys want to record in this weekend? And they're like, are you doing covers of Lizzie or something? And
yeah, because like I think they just do Thin Lizzy covers because standing by this like a statue of the lead singer because they're Irish.
Oh, okay. We didn't totally understand.
Yeah, I was like, Lizzie, who is Lizzie?
Lizzie McGuire?
Lizzie McGuire? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
This is what dreams are made. That's what they're playing all day long.
But then they agree to be the band, and they go to record at the studio, and you see that basically they have and she's done like a bunch in that regard too. Like she's basically talked the studio manager to cut $1,000 off the price, and he gives them sort of like an audio technician who does not give a shit about this recording, because it's very clear that they've all never recorded before, and they're just like some people off the street kind of thing. But then they start playing, and they win him over because of the good music. So it's kind of on him, really. But
But for a second, can we talk about how his guitar is the shittiest guitar I've ever seen?
That's his real guitar
in my life. It has like holes.
Yeah, a full hole straight through the front plate. Yeah. It's because when he was busking, he would have to play loud so that it would carry, and he would use picks that eventually started because of his like vigorous strumming would cut into the wood, and it gouged out that hole. Wow. So that's his actual guitar from when he busked all the time.
Well, it's also like Willie Nelson has his famous guitar Trigger, and it looks a lot like that too. So I was like, it feels like a nod to that.
Yeah.
So he's a true journeyman.
He's a true
vigorous strummer.
But yeah,
a vigorous strummer. Yeah.
I think the recording studio sequence is my favorite of the movie because it just. I think the whole movie feels really authentic and honest, and it does just kind of feel like this authentic experience of people coming together to make art, and like the whole movie is very believable. I feel like we've talked about this maybe a little bit on the pod of like, it's really hard. It's hard to not get taken out of a movie when somebody plays a song and people in the movie are like, this is the best song ever. And then you get a montage of it like playing on the radio and stuff. And you're like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fine song. But like this movie, it feels very genuine of like, he is really talented. These are good songs. Like if you came into a studio just to pay for a weekend and played these, and like they play really well together as a band, but it's not like, you know, it's also not a music biopic where you're like, we have to suspend our disbelief and like imagine these people are hearing like Johnny Cash for the first time.
Yeah.
It's like, he's a solid songwriter, and like,
yeah, and one of the things I love about it too is that it doesn't ever really feel like they're saying like I'm gonna make it with this, like,
And they
this
don't
is the
show
thing.
that,
yeah,
which is also makes it more realistic. Is you don't know what happens. You don't know if he makes it, if he takes those demos and gets a recording contract. Like it's all like, you could do that. You could get you could raise the money and go. I have friends who have gone into recording studios and recorded stuff. Have they gotten famous? No.
Yeah.
But they're still really good musicians.
yeah, and I really like what you said too, Patrick, about how it's like this movie's more about the sort of transitory nature of making art, where people come together, work on something very intensely together, get really close, and then they sort of drift apart and you may never see them again. Like that's what happens with like a lot of people when they do plays. Like you come together, there's 6 of you become like the best of friends for the 3-week run of the play, and then you never talk to them again.
Yeah. I also feel like her as a character at the beginning, like she almost seems kind of like naive, and she just looks really young compared to him. And so you're like, are you just this way because are you so full of hope and like, you're great, this is great, like you should record this because you are young and don't know what you mean? Or like, and then I think her having a daughter and a husband is like, your life hasn't been perfect, you know what I mean? Like you've like seen some stuff and you've like taken risks and like felt like what that means and like what the consequences of things are. And so I feel like it like adds more depth to her character. If she was just some like spunky 19-year-old, like we should record this. And like, she just like moved to Dublin and was like, I'm here before my gap year. You're like, this would be really different than like her character.
But clearly she's struggling, and like, she finds a job as a cleaner, and that's like a really good job for her. And
she's so excited, and she like talks to him about it, and he's like, oh, that's amazing, like I'm so happy for you. That's
even though she is struggling, she's also really positive. And she's just like a really nice, good person.
Yeah, and she's also she like takes charge in a lot of this stuff and is like, I'm going to negotiate on this price, and like I'm going to go get us a loan. Like, I know what we need to do to like get to this, and I know that
she's very fearless in a way that he definitely like. He is very much controlled by fear, I feel like, throughout the beginning of the movie, and she really kind of in that way of like a manic pixie dream girl archetype kind of cracks him out of that. But in a lot of ways, because she is so complex and has such a lot going on off screen, she isn't really in that category. It's more like you just meet somebody who just sort of like kickstarts sort of a thing in you to start again, like he wants to do all this stuff. He just has never been able to, like, he hasn't been getting the input to be able to make himself really try again, it almost feels like.
And they need each other. Like she wouldn't be doing these music things without him, and he wouldn't be doing these music things without her. But
he's like in a way like super generous. Like, I mean, using our shared background, it would be like going to like improv or something and just seeing a random person who's like, wow, you guys were really good, and us being like, you want to be part of, you want to come do a set with us? Like, he does really invite her in and give her an opportunity to like really express herself and like really have a meaningful creative hand at something that she probably didn't have access to otherwise, which is really an interesting part of it too. And we actually see her sort of creative self, because like they go through recording all these songs. It's really awesome. I agree, Patrick. It's such a fun little montage of them making stuff and like being in the room together, just chatting and talking.
I just learned something from the Wikipedia. That I didn't know.
We'll talk about it in a second. But they then go to, it's like 3 a.m. and they're like, let's take 15 minutes and then record our last song or something. And they go and they find this piano, or she goes and he sort of finds her at this piano that she's found in another part of the studio, and she sings a heart-wrenching song that she had wrote for her husband about how she's like trying really hard and trying to make it work, but it's not working, and she starts crying. Yeah, it's brutal.
We're all crying.
We're all
Everyone's
crying. Yeah, it's such a beautiful song, but it's like, and it is one of those moments too, Alice, like you were saying, of like, oh, he's not the only talented one. Like, she's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just from the like filmmaking perspective of the movie, like I joked earlier that the quality is pretty poor, but like it is really like that scene's really beautiful. Like you mentioned, Alice, like it's just lit so well, and it's this beautiful live performance. And like I don't know, you feel like it is. There's a lot of like craftsmanship at work.
Mm-hmm. It's really amazing. It's like it's so cool, so atmospheric. And then she starts crying and stops, and he's talks to her about it and about how her husband said that he didn't like the song when she played it for him, and he's like, well, he's an idiot, and you can feel that like tension between them again. But then they have to go and finish the songs. One thing that did happen like during this sort of montage, and Alice saw on the Wikipedia, and we do need to mention, is that they have this day on like a motorbike where they kind of go around to all these different places.
Yeah.
And they end up at this like sea area, like like these cliffs that are overlooking the ocean. And basically he says, how do you say in Czech, do you still love him, or something? And he asks in Czech after she tells him, and then she answers in Czech, and you don't know what her answer is. We just saw on Wikipedia that it means it's you who I love, which is heartbreaking, but she never tells him that otherwise.
It's such an interesting romance movie because nothing happens between them.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
so romantic.
Yeah, right. And it is like there are those scenes, the piano scene, the initial falling slowly scene, and that scene that are like very intimate, but aren't actually romantic or like sexual in any way. And that scene too, I had also seen that because it happened in the movie, and I kind of like clocked it in my head of like, I feel like she said something.
Like half the words are the same. So like there's something there.
And then I did look it up at the end, which is also just a nice, like artistic touch to just like have that little question in there. But it doesn't quite, I don't know. It's like, it's interesting because it's not so like overwrought that you're just like, come on, like just say you love each other. Like it's not quite that. It's like a little more complex because you're like, they're both like dealing, like you understand. It's not like a movie where you're just like, come on, you idiots, just tell each other, it's not just like a misunderstanding and that kind of thing. You're like,
there's so many obstacles.
In a way they understand each other really well.
You can see them like actively being like just trying to be friends. Like they're both just trying to be friends, but it's like there is something there as well.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't feel particularly like one-sided either, other than him like the bedroom scene early on. It doesn't feel like one is really pining for the other super hard. It's just like, I guess she does like kind of stand him up at the end, but we can talk about that too. But
I mean, that's basically right now. So the studio engineer Eamon is like, well, we just crushed out that album. I guess it's time to do the car test, to like play it on shitty speakers and listen to how it goes. And so then we just have like a little bit of a montage as they sort of drive around Dublin all together. And then you kind of see them all starting to split up. And it's Monday morning, and he has said, I'm leaving on Monday. So it's like later that day kind of thing that he is gonna be leaving. And he's like, hey, to girl, he's like, hey, do you want to come back to my place and hang out? Do you want to, I'll make you breakfast. And then she is sort of like, if I were to do that, it would just end in hanky panky. And she's like, it's not like, that's not what this is about. And like, or it cannot just be about that in the end. And so then he's like, why don't you come over later? Like, take your time, go home, like check in with your family, whatever, and then come over. And she never does, even though she says she will. And so the next day he is going to London, but he is, or like that time is weird in this moment. I don't quite remember the order of things, but he essentially plays the tape for his dad, and he's worried that his dad won't like it. And his dad's like, shut up, I fucking love it, play it again, sort of thing. And he's saved up some money to help his son move to London. And he's like, I'll fly, like, let me know when you're settled and I'll fly over and spend some time with you. And
and he's like, I don't have to go, guys, like, I don't have to go right now. Like, I can stay and help take care of you. And he's like, shut up, I'm fine.
Yeah, he's like,
It's so nice.
yeah, but it's like his mom died, and so he's been sort of using that almost as an excuse to stay at home with his dad and not have to do all these risky things. But his dad is sort of in this moment where he's like, you don't need to worry about me. I'm going to be fine. You like go live your life kind of thing. And it's just like a really nice moment. And then he's like, play it again, and puts his pipe back in his mouth. And it's just really nice. And so then we see that he like goes to the piano store and like talks to the clerk, but we don't know what happens. And then he leaves, and he has bought her a piano, and we then see it being delivered to her, and her kind of, receiving this gift as he has called his ex-girlfriend, and she's like, I'm excited to see you. And then we see him like walking into the airport and her looking at the piano. And it's this moment where, they will never see each other again.
And
Her
we
husband's
see
there.
the girl's husband.
Yes,
The husband's there with the daughter.
And they're trying to make that work as well. So,
yeah. I mean, I think I don't know if you said it as a joke, but I like, in terms of never see each other again, do you like in your head, do you have a vision of what you think their future is, or do you?
For me, this movie is so, I feel like what the director is saying is like, this was a beautiful moment in time once, almost as a thing. It's like this very specific piece of time, and it almost is sort of like a memory. Even when you're watching it the first time, you're sort of like, oh wow, this is like a very specific place and time and a group of people. And I just think that and maybe that's part of why I was like, oh, it feels like college or whatever. Because once those people sort of separate, or like something has happened in that place where sort of like the status quo is shattered, you really never come back and it feels the same and you have the same people around. It's not going to be the same. So I feel like the movie is just saying like, this is this beautiful little thing that happened in this one place. And I don't think they have a future together. I think it's just like a moment where they had this really strong connection, and then this is how it played out. But that's just me. What about you, Alice?
I agree. I think it's just like, that's why it's so sad, but so beautiful at the same time. It's because they can't be together, but they still they clearly love each other. And it's beautiful, but sad.
What about you guys? Do you think that they have like a future together, or like, do you envision anything else after this?
I don't know. I mean, I think the part of the point is, we don't know, and that's where the story ends. And like, I think immediately after watching it in my head, I was like, they're meant for each. Like, of course they'll end up together. I mean, I think in my head, I'm like, it's not going to work out in London, either with the girl or with the music or with both, and he'll end up back home. But then obviously she has her own family, so. I don't know. I think in my head, I was like, of course, they're meant for each other. They'll end up together somehow, some way. But I don't know.
I don't think they would. I think they'd be apart. And I think for me, it was like she was kind of like a catalyst in his life, and like kind of the one kicking him out of his like funk. And so like, I don't know. For me, it was like, oh, she's like fulfilled the purpose in his life almost. And I think she's like had time to be like, I could have this other relationship, and like looking at a different lens of like what could be her life, of like letting go of her marriage forever, but she decides it's not actually what she wants. She like wants to try to make it work. So
and in a way, if we like use the the piano is kind of a symbol, it also, that last shot means that she can have both things. She can have her family and be like with this like familial unit, but also have this music and this other stuff that she had found elsewhere in her life as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, like if anything, the stuff that I envision is like she gets more involved with the music community that she met through him, and like becomes more of a person around town in that way, and like their life gets a little bit more stable and like certain, and
Maybe
like
she gets a job playing music.
something great. Maybe she works at the piano store.
Oh,
That'd be great.
that would be great.
But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think of this movie?
You'd never seen it.
Never
Right?
seen it. Haven't seen it. Didn't know it was musical. I feel like that would have. I'm famously not into musicals, so I feel like it really would have colored it in a bad way for me. So I'm glad I hear it now. But no, it was good. I liked it. I think like I have. Yeah, it's one of those movies that you like think about a little bit after it's over, which is nice. It's like in some ways it's like very different from My Big Fat Greek Wedding in that way, where you're like, oh, this has a nice like bow on it. You have like this full complete picture, whereas this is just like a snapshot of like what you're looking at, like in a bigger kind of picture. It feels like you're like zooming in on something. So yeah, I liked it. I think also like we looked it up afterwards, and it apparently like he discovered. Do you guys know this? Like he discovered her as a 16-year-old, like the actual person.
This is the thing about how I ruined this movie for Alice.
No, because I was like, this feels like you like feel the tension. And I'm like, did they have an affair? Like it's when like it's like watching Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You're like, are they gonna fuck like in real life after this?
So
and
the movie
like
was
maybe,
paused,
yeah.
and Nick was like, "Oh, they were together in real life," and I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And then I started thinking, what's their age difference?
So he at this time was, I think, 36. And
he was born in 1970 and she was born in 1988. And this movie came out in 2007.
So she was 19 and he was like 37.
36.
And
they did like...
Yeah, he discovered her
as a 16-year-old.
when she was 16. Like her parents were running a music festival, and he like helped jumpstart her career as a musician. And then they made this movie. And then I think during the shooting of the movie, started a romantic relationship. But
it could have been way worse. Like it could.
It only I mean, it's interesting because I think they were together romantically for it looks like 2 or 3 years, and then have continued off, I think, inconsistently to have an artistic relationship. Like I think
they were in a like they formed a band or a group called like the Silent or the Quiet Season or something.
Swell Season.
Yeah, that was it. And they I think did that for like 10 years. So even when they weren't together, and like Patrick said, it was sort of on and off. But yeah, it did sort of, color it a little bit, sadly, unfortunately, because it was like, in the movie, she reads older because of the kid and like the situation she has. Like Alice,
I thought she was in her 20s and that he was like in his early 30s.
Yeah.
And then Nick told me that and I was like, oh.
Like, fuck.
Does that ruin this movie that she's a teenager and he's like mid to late 30s?
Yeah.
Kind of does, which
a little bit
sucks because it's such a good movie.
Like he's almost 2 times. He is twice? No, almost twice.
Almost twice. Yeah. The big thing for me though is like the movie isn't saying that. Like the movie isn't like, oh, this super young person is inspiring this older person. The movie sort of sets them up as being similar in age. And so like I feel like the art is saying one thing and then real life is saying another thing a little bit.
It's tricky.
And it's hard, but it's such a fun, it's like such a nice story, and it is such a non-sexualized story that it makes it feel like I can still watch it and it not being gross or weird.
I wish the movie sort of indicated at least a little bit of what their ages are supposed to be, because that would like reassure me a little bit.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Apparently, Cillian Murphy was originally supposed to play Guy.
That's crazy.
Oh, that one's so good.
I mean, he also
felt uncomfortable with the fact that she was 17, which he should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he got called out for 2 years, and then
that's why he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to do a movie with an underage girl.
Yeah.
Good
and
for
I think also he was nervous about the singing. singing Glenn Hansard's songs because they're hard to sing.
Yeah.
But then the movie actually lost a lot of funding when he dropped out.
Yeah, they lost like almost all their producers. This whole movie was made for like $100,000.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like it.
Yeah, you can tell.
Sometimes I was like, I want them to have a fucking tripod. You're just like,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's definitely run and gun. And like it made, I mean, both of these movies for $150,000, the box office on this movie was $23.3 million.
Holy shit.
Did pretty well, you know?
Yeah.
both
They're
of
like
these movies.
10 times, if not more, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
That's like 300 times. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Apparently, her saying the line in Czech was ad-libbed, and that he didn't know either during the movie. That could just be marketing fluff, but that's what he says.
I think there's a lot of improvisation also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe
Yeah.
it. No, I mean it won. I'm not sure like what the trajectory of this movie's success was, but it won the Oscar for Falling Slowly, which feels deserved. I like went through. I think in my head I was like, usually the best song Oscar's like bad, right? They just pick some random song.
Yeah.
I did look through. The winners are generally pretty good, but the nominees I feel like are kind of all like it'll just be a song that played in the credits of some movie, and they're like, oh, it counts. But there were a lot of winners that I was like, I didn't realize that song was initially in a movie. But yeah.
Like what, Patrick?
All right. Well, last year was Barbie. What Was I Made For? Good song.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the Bond songs win a lot.
Yeah.
Skyfall.
Shallow.
Ugh.
Remember Me. Remember Me from Coco. Very good. But
I'll cry.
Beat Mystery
That
of Love.
movie made me sob so hard.
Some of them are Let It Go one. A lot of them are Disney movies. Randy Newman song from Toy Story 3. Jai-Ho from Slumdog Millionaire. A Melissa Etheridge song called I Need to Wake Up from An Inconvenient Truth.
That's funny.
Random that
wild.
a documentary song.
Yeah.
wins.
So I feel like there's a mix of ones that are
Lose
like,
Yourself.
Yeah, You'll Be in My Heart from Tarzan.
Damn.
My
Phil
Heart Will Go On, Titanic,
Classic.
obviously.
Yeah. Colors of the Wind. Fucking classic.
Can You Feel the Love Tonight? Like Streets of Philadelphia by Bruce Springsteen from the movie Philadelphia.
A Whole New World.
Who knew?
All these great love songs.
Time of My Life from Dirty Dancing.
Incredible movie. I mean, that's my favorite romance movie, really.
I've never seen it. We should
Dirty
have watched
Dancing?
it. It's shot.
Pick that.
It's shot in North Carolina.
Yeah, shot at Lake
Dirty
Lure.
Dancing's great.
But it's not a rom-com.
It's
But
not.
neither is one. So.
I was gonna say, I think I had to like calibrate. I didn't expect it to be a comedy, but I think part of my overall reaction to the movie was like required a little bit of recalibration, which I think isn't. I assume would happen for most people watching this movie. You go in kind of expecting it to be a traditional meet cute love story,
Yeah.
and you're kind of like, oh no, they're not going to get together. It kind of sets itself up
It's like
too.
passing ships.
Yeah, you kind of have this, their last night together opportunity, or like him going to the airport. Oh, he's going to realize the error of his ways and turn and go back. And it just like, yeah.
There are a lot of
You know what
parallels.
Once really feels like as a movie? It feels very similar to Before Sunrise.
Maybe
Or
that's
before,
probably
what's the first one?
Before sunrise.
Before Sunrise. Before
Probably
Sunrise.
why I like
is-
it.
Yeah, it's also very similar, like kind of
Low
run and
budget.
gun, low budget, highly improvised, and also a movie in which like it's just like a very specific moment in time. They then develop what happens later to those characters, but it's also one of those things where they leave and you don't know what the status of what they could be, is.
Yeah. We could get
Another-
it twice and a thrice.
Yes.
Little follow up. Before Sunrise, though, they do fuck, right? In the first one?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Hey, Bart.
that one's, that one indulges.
And the
Because I remember I
Greek
watched
people,
that
they
one.
also were fucking.
I watched that one on a plane, which is not the way to watch that movie.
No.
And it was like, there's not anything explicit that happens on screen, but I was like, this feels so intimate to be watching on a crowded
Not a plane
plane.
movie.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like it almost feels voyeuristic, where you're sort of like peeking on something that maybe you're not supposed to be,
Yeah.
And I feel like Once has a little bit of that too, of like you're kind of peeking. So
Should we talk about both movies together?
yeah, which one do you like more? What do you think wins?
Well, what's the category?
Category.
Everything.
What's the criteria?
The romantic, was it? Was that it? Was that
I
it?
guess so.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron, make your case, because for whatever the category is, because Patrick and I were literally just like, let's have our partners pick movies.
Yeah. I think like romance was what I was thinking. You could also be like adult coming of age romance.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
True.
commonalities between the movies, surprisingly.
Yeah. It's almost like second puberty in a weird way.
Yeah. I don't know if now is the time to go through them, but I did write them down.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
That's a perfect time.
adults living in home with their parents.
Yes.
People in their 30s living home with their parents.
Uh-huh.
What I consider like a quote unquote foreign love interest. So someone who's like outside of their like everyday culture coming in and shaking things up. There's a lot of like internal versus external like push for your dreams.
Yeah.
I think in some ways I like My Big Fat Greek Wedding because it's like a woman who dreams of her life being better and then she like makes it happen by herself for the most part. Whereas like, and she's against the like arguably the two most important people in her life, her parents, and she's like going against the grain of like her entire family. Like no one in her family's ever did, you know what I mean? She's like, she's really pushing it out there, and she's not this like loud, extremely rambunctious woman. She's like kind of quiet and shy, but she's like, no, I'm doing this. And so I think I weirdly like respect her more than like the guy's character, because I'm just like, for him, it really does feel like he wouldn't have done this without her. Like I feel like he needs like someone to kick him out of his little like well. But there is this like push for like internal like things you want and like going after them and like finally like realizing your potential. There's a lot of car scenes.
Wait, what? Hold on.
There's some like cars. I don't know. There's some car scenes.
A lot of
Sometimes they're inside, sometimes they're outside.
Okay, sure. I think that can be said for a lot of movies. But
Shut up. You didn't write a list. Yeah. I also wrote at the end of the day, we end up not that far away. So I feel like there's like a lot of like kind of staying in place and like change happening kind of within your realm. That being said, I don't know. Like My Big Fat Greek Wedding is like one of my favorite movies of all time. And I love like a powerful woman, which I feel like both of these movies kind of have. Like a woman who's like, maybe it'll fail, but like maybe it'll be great and it's like worth going for.
Yeah, I feel like for me the thing that is different about these movies is that I feel like Once is much more of a vibes or atmospheric movie, whereas My Big Fat Greek Wedding is sort of like there's a plot, there's a story, and it's like a ride. You know
jokes.
what I mean? And jokes. And I think I really agree with you, Aaron, about sort of the self-madeness of the characters in My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Like, she makes this stuff happen for herself. Her brother like is inspired by her and starts doing the same thing and is going to go to art school. Ian kind of comes in and is always sort of going after what he wants and in the way that he wants it kind of thing. So it feels like a lot more of people like actively trying to shape their life. Whereas Once is sort of like, it almost feels like everyone is like shadows of their former self and they're sort of reclaiming their life. You know what I mean? They're like, they're kind of like ghosts, and then they all kind of become alive again and then start their lives again. So very different sort of feels there.
Yeah.
What about you, Alice?
I mean, I think it's hard to, they're both really good movies. I feel good watching both of them. I feel My Big Fat Greek Wedding is like easier to watch for sure, and you just leave like, and you're like, oh, that was fun. And Once is like, I feel kind of cathartically heartbroken, but I still like that feeling. I like a movie that makes me cry in a nice way. So yeah, it's. I think that the two main characters, you get a little bit more of. I think they're both fleshed out a little bit more in Once than they are in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, because John Corbett's character is kind of just sort of like a little bit one note. It's a nice note, and it's nice to see a male lead who's just like, yeah, I love her, and he's just
no
like
problems here.
He's just a nice guy. I like that he's an English teacher. I like that he likes Shakespeare. I'm into that. But I do think that you do get a little bit more nuance in the two characters in Once. But also, you get kissing and effing in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which I'm always here for. So I don't know what's hard to say. I don't know how we're going to decide.
What about you, Patrick?
I think for both movies, talking about them on this podcast has grown my appreciation for both. And not that I didn't like either of them before, but just hearing why they're special to y'all, and just like the things that you find in them that you may not notice on first watch is nice. I think overall, I think like we said, My Big Fat Greek Wedding goes down easy. It's got a nice bow on it. I think in terms of like what I generally like in movies, I think I lean towards Once a little bit, just because it has more of that like ambiguity and just like authenticity in its story, and it feels like you're spending time with real people, and I appreciate that. So I think it's just grading on like movie as movies. I think I would Once.
Movie as movies.
Yeah, I give you for being wrong.
Oh no. What have we done? For me, I can't. Right, it's hard for me to be objective about this movie or about Once right now, because it feels so much like my friend who passed away, Michael. Like, he sort of was the guy character in that movie in a lot of ways, and so like. And the stuff that was happening reminds me of like my time as like an artist in Halifax, being like very poor, going to school and like being around all those people. And so like I think I have a outsized love of this film.
You love the music also.
I also love the music.
Almost constantly.
Yeah. I once almost blew my voice out trying to sing the first song in the movie over and over and over again. So like obviously I'm hooked. The thing that I love about both of these movies, though, is that they are such clear distillations of an artist's vision of something. Like My Big Fat Greek Wedding is written by her. It's starred in by her. It is her life that she is pulling from, and it feels so like clean in that way, like so intentional, and like this is a perfect encapsulation of this person's vision. And I think that Glenn Hansard and the other folks that were part of that creative team we're all buskers, and we're all like part of the scene there. So it feels super authentic. Like Patrick, you talking about the authenticity of Once, like I feel it very cleanly in both of these movies that this is like a uninterrupted, unsullied artistic vision. And so I like both of these, and I didn't expect to get that out of My Big Fat Greek Wedding, if I'm going to be honest. I kind of went in being like, I remember this being a silly show. Like my stepmom really loved the Windex stuff, and then I remember, and then we like watched it, and I was like, wow, that fucking rocked. So
it's a tie.
Yeah, it's a tie, but I'm going to remove myself out of this. So that
hold on. No.
I'm impartial. I'm removing myself. So that
are you just saying because you're in the middle, or are you saying you're, because I think if you're saying you're perfectly in the middle, I think that's great. I think if you're saying that you can't rate it because of what you just feel like I articulated about Once, that doesn't make you biased. That's how art works.
I think personally, on a personal level, I like Once better because of all of the reasons I was saying before. Yeah. But I don't think like on an objective level that I could pick one of these movies to be a better, like the better one.
There's no such there's no such thing as being objective about culture.
Okay, fine. Then I'll vote for Once. Is that what you want?
Fair. You want one. A whole book about this.
So what is your vote? Because it didn't sound like you made it.
No, I think I would probably vote for Once because
there you go.
That was my choice.
Wow.
I'm so sorry.
Hey, it's totally fine. I know
I
that
love
have
that movie, and I did
Yeah.
not expect to again.
It's so good. I just love
I
love it because it's like a full meal, and I'm never one to be like, I don't want to. Like, I feel like you just gave me a heavy hors d'oeuvre once, and I'm still hungry, and I'm like, I want to know what happened.
Yeah.
So, they're very different.
And I'll say I came into this record not knowing which one I would pick, so it wasn't like it was. It was a close one for me. I watched both movies and really enjoyed both, and I think just through what we talked about, the meaning in both, I just lean a little bit towards ones.
I also, I think me reciting all the things out loud during my big fat wedding probably spoiled it.
It's so funny. I was going to say this when you made that comment the first time, but Alice and I did have a conversation as one started being like, are we allowed to sing along as we watch one? And then Alice was like, I don't think so. And I was like, okay. The first song came up and she's singing in like 2 bars. She's already starting like going in. And I was like, I guess we're singing to this movie.
I have a beautiful voice.
So funny.
Why would you want me to rob you of that?
Yeah, I guess that's so right. That's so true. And then there was a moment later on in the movie where I was kind of singing to one of the songs on my own, and I was kind of smiling. I look at her and she was like giving me a look of like, you can stop singing now.
Wow. I could tell Patrick wanted to be like, please stop reciting these lines. I was like, well can't stop.
I will not.
Yeah. Which is wild because I feel like last time we watched it, it wasn't that long ago. He forgets it completely, but he kept turning and being like, that's why you say this all the time. And I was like, fuck yeah, it is.
It was during the pandemic I blacked that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like My Big Fat Greek Wedding would be one of those that would be a great Thanksgiving movie, like My Cousin Vinny, in the same sort of genre.
You love the idea of a Thanksgiving.
I feel like it's a Valentine's Day movie for me. Like it's such a good Valentine's movie because like everyone's seen it, everyone loves it. It's about a girl working within the patriarchy, which still exists in the year of our Lord 2025, arguably worse than ever before. But yeah, so I feel like there's like that part of it where you're like lady power. So Valentine's. Or Palentine's.
My Valentine's movie is Now and Then.
I don't think
What
I've
is
seen
that
that one. Like the candies?
No, that's If Then, and that's a musical.
Sorry,
what are you talking about?
I'm in a
I
different
don't know
place.
this
It's with
movie.
Rosie O'Donnell, Demi Moore, Christina Ricci. It's so good. It's about 4 girl best friends.
Wait,
Is Rosie O'Donnell the one who took all the Ambien and said weird stuff?
that was Roseanne Barr.
Roseanne Barr, sorry.
Roseanne Barr. No, we're safe. We're safe.
No, we like Rosie O'Donnell.
Okay, we talked about now. I think you talked about this on the Barbie episode because I'm remembering like looking it up and being like, I have not heard of this movie. It's like the young and it's like them as
Yeah,
kids.
so you
and them
see
as
them when they're
adults.
young, and then you see them when they're adults. And you could take out all the adult parts of the movie, and it would be a much better movie. Parts where they're adults, like it doesn't make sense that Thora Birch becomes Melanie Griffith. Like that doesn't make sense at all. But it's a great movie.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, Aaron and Alice, what do you think we should do for our next one? Do you have a category? And then I think later on, Patrick and I will record a culture boys where we figure out what movies would go in the theme. But do you have a theme for this this March coming up?
My first thought, best thought was When Boys Cry is the theme. And it's movies that make you cry.
Oh, I have a perfect one for that.
Is it P.S. I Love You?
Oh my God!
Yes.
P.S. I Love You. Because P.S. I Love You. Did I already reveal this to you guys that when I was in high school, I had 2 separate DVDs of that movie?
You cried on one so hard that it salt edged the DVD.
You cried that DVD to death.
P.S. I Love You, I cry like a motherfucker, but I also cry every single time I watch Big Fish. So,
Yeah.
do you have
That's a
one,
good-
Patrick?
I would have to think about it. I mean, the most recent one was Iron Claw, but we don't have to do that for the podcast.
What? Aaron, do you have one that he...
March Madness basketball movies. We're talking Air Bud. We're talking Like Mike. We're talking
Coach Carter.
Space Jam. We're talking
I forgot all
Love
about
and
Like Mike.
basketball.
Ooh.
There's a lot of basketball movies. And
Double
it's March
Team,
Madness.
the Disney Channel
Basketball
original movie
Diaries.
about the twins.
Oh my God, yes. It should be obscure basketball movies.
Like Mike, is that the one where he the shoes on the power line get shocked with the power of Michael Jordan? Yeah. Okay.
I always thought there would be a sequel that was like Mike about Michael Jackson. This was pretty,
Oh no!
Where they got like dancing shoes, and then that all went down.
Honestly, a basketball movie that made me cry, Hoop Dreams. Have you ever seen Hoop Dreams?
I've never seen Hoop Dreams.
It's a documentary.
What about Love and Basketball? I've always wanted to see that.
Yeah.
I've never seen Love and Basketball.
Basketball's pretty good.
That could be fun.
Have you seen White Man Can't Jump?
Never seen White
Semi-Pro?
Semi-Pro. I've never seen White Man Can't Jump. Is it good?
My dad made me watch it when I was a kid, and I remember not really getting it, but that was also when I was a kid, so maybe it's better now.
Well, it's the Disney Channel one, Luck of the Irish. That's basketball, isn't it? Doesn't he play basketball in that one?
Irish?
Luck of the Irish versus Irish Wish with Lindsay Lohan.
Stop trying to get Lindsay Lohan movies in here.
Yeah,
well, that's true. It's also March, so it's St. Patrick's Day.
He's a leprechaun.
Look, the Irish. Oh, basketball Irish crossover. Find another movie.
Much like an improv set, we'll take all of that and we'll figure something out for next time. Thank you all so much for listening to Movie versus Movie. And thank you to our two awesome guests, Erin and Alice. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll have you back again soon. But thank you for these great suggestions.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
I like the Irish.
Patrick, anything to say before we close on out?
No. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Hope you, hope you have love in your life.
Or like a really good orgasm that day.
Or a really good orgasm that day.
Well, on that, we'll see you all in a couple of weeks for another episode of Movie vs. Movie. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie. Movie versus movie.